them objectively to determine the proper solutions. In addition, we will need to discuss Orlik's future compensation package and how the Ukraine market is managed. That being said, if we take a micro and macro approach, we may be able to solve these problems as a board. The first problem with Deutsche Brewery is the sustainable growth rate versus the actual growth rate. Slide! Our actual growth rate is climbing too fast. We don't have the capacity to sustain this growth rate under the current situation. The company is growing growth. We can only produce a maximum amount of slide. 1.2 million hectoliters of beer, and we are currently producing 1.173 million hectoliters. Slide! We must sell 938,799 hectoliters of beer in order to break even with the total cost of production. As you know, Orlik Pinchok has made the recommendation of adding a new manufacturing plant, which could be very good for long-term growth, but we must decide that as a board. Since our objective is to make money, and we have always sold beer in large volumes, we should take advantage of the emerging markets and leverage the trade credits we can muster with our distributors.
Greta, you mentioned receivables and distributors. What is the issue with these?
Good question, Dirk. Although sales are up, the significant portion of total liabilities for distributors is tied up in accounts payable. And this is directly tied to the accounts receivable line for Deutsche.
But Greta, our sales are way up. How can this
As a percentage of total assets, trade receivables, inventory, and fixed assets, these do not add up to total assets. If you assume that the remaining percentage is cash, as shown here in the slide, the aggregate for all the distributors would be 33%.
Why is Luja not being paid?
The days receivable in the Ukraine is currently 80 days and trending up. However, all of our distributors have large holdings of cash on hand. Slide. We should lower our collection of receivables from 80 days to 60 days and eventually to our German standard of 40 days. This will get us paid faster.
If they don't want to pay, why don't we just buy them out?
Long term, this may be a solution. We could forgive our receivables and gain ownership in the distributors, vertically integrate. We should explore this option at a future meeting. Deutsche can vertically integrate all or some of the Ukrainian distributors by forgiving the receivable balances owed by these distributors in exchange for more direct control over the stores selling the product. This would move our current assets into a long-term asset through the partial ownership of these distributors. This would be a new venture for Deutsche, who during our history has maintained a we brew beer and beer sales only philosophy.
But I thought we only saw the beer.
Shut up, Johann!
We can tighten the credit policy to decrease the receivable time from 40 days versus the too long time frame of 90 days. If distributors cannot make net 40, we could forgive some of the debt by taking equity in some of the distributors' warehouses. This is a vertical integration. It should keep on the table for future. We would have the ability to control our distribution channels much more effectively if we are to take ownership and control the terms of credit by tightening up the time frame of our accounts receivable.
Greta, you mentioned the dividends. Are you suggesting we raise them?
Actually, Johann, I think it would be in our best interest to lower them.
Nein!
Dividends are one of the main reasons why actual growth is exceeding the sustainable growth. Slide. The sustainable growth curve will be affected by our retention ratio and financial leverage, coupled with the fact that the dividends are 75% of the net income, and I know this may be a sensitive topic for the family business. Decreasing said dividends may, in the long run, actually increase them for all of us.
Oh, okay. So we increase on retention rate, and in the long run, this fixes the gap between our actual growth rate and the sustainable growth. And we receive the same dividend amount?
Slide. Though dividends may drop a very small amount, I recommend retained earnings are increased to 50%. Slide. This fixes the gap between sustainable and actual. This doesn't show long-term security and the sustainability of the dividends. I would think this is far more important to the family.
Greta, you mentioned we should look at our pricing. Does this mean we should lower price to sell more beer, yeah?
We don't want to lower the price, do we?
Shut up, Johann!
Quite the opposite, Claude. Right? We should consider raising prices in the Ukrainian market. This is a key lever in the sustainable growth rate and will lower an actual growth rate. Profit margins will increase as sales slow and net income increases.
Oh, slide! So by increasing the price in the Ukraine, demand will inevitably go down. This could help with our capacity problem. And we do not need new financing for Oleg's expansion request.
Exactly, Claude. You are as quick as an Audi on Autobahn.
Shut up, Johann! Greta, we would all like to reward Oleg handsomely. What do you suggest regarding his compensation plan?
It's like, it's a
It
Chinese German.
appears Oleg's compensation package rewards the top line on sales and with the very loose terms of credit with the distributors. Without regard for sustainability, we are facing real trouble. While Oleg has been a major factor in our growth, his results have also been a major factor in our dilemma. His current compensation package regards growth in sales, but there is more we must consider.
Oh, I am beginning to see. Slide! Let us change Oleg's compensation package to be based on free cash flow and receivables, rather than comparable revenues.
Well, samurai.
This would provide incentive for him to tighten up on receivables and focus more on the bottom line than just the sales and market share.
Wonderful idea, Lucas.
Greta, thank you for your time today. Welcome to the board. We have learned a lot.
Yes, a very lot.
I hereby move that we table the addendum items for further review and adjourn this meeting. All in favor say yeah!
Ja!
Sweet drink.
Shut up, Johann!
Okay, so, you guys might not have been able to tell, but this was a reenactment. So, this was a fake board meeting, the fake company, but the problems that they're facing are very real, and we want to loop back real quick, because obviously that was rather belligerent, not unlike a regular board meeting, and talk a little bit about what our recommendations are again, just really quick. So, our short-term recommendations that we suggested in order to bring sustainable growth and actual growth back in line with each other were to